There are many things that can result in a power failure, including a car accident, vandalism of electrical substations, a cyber attack on the nation's power grid, an electromagnetic pulse detonation over the U.S., a CME or coronal mass ejection from the sun, a solar storm, or any of many types of major weather events. In this presentation, we're going to focus on surviving a power failure in the dead of winter. This will include examples of past large-scale winter power failures, how to survive safely in a cold, dark winter power outage, as well as things you can do to prepare in advance for future winter power failures. One of the most recent major winter power failures was called the Storm of the Century in New York. Pittsburgh's CBS affiliate KDKA explains.
The power grids are being tested as we speak. From Maine to Texas, more than 1 million homes and businesses right now are without power in this cold.
ABC's Good Morning America program covered this winter storm in the Northeast United States in December 2022.
This morning, nearly 1 million in the dark. That massive winter storm battering more than half of the country. People now dealing with what it left behind. The Northeast hit hard. That Arctic air packing up to 70-mile wind gusts along the coastline, knocking out power to more than 200,000.
There's a lot of flooded roads, there's trees down, we have some broken poles, a lot of conductor down.
Crews there working around the clock to get the lights back on.
ABC News Live also covered the storm.
The city of Buffalo is digging out after several feet of snow blanketed cars, roads, and homes in what the state's governor has called the, quote, blizzard of the century. Officials in Erie County, which includes Buffalo, say the death toll there has risen to 34 people. Some of the victims were found in their cars or outside in the cold. Others suffering cardiac events from shoveling or blowing snow.
In 2021, the entire state of Texas suffered a catastrophic power failure in the middle of an unprecedented winter storm. The reason the entire state lost power was due to the fact that the state of Texas had its own power system separated from the rest of the United States, limiting the state's ability to borrow power from other states, as is commonly done with power companies in the rest of the country. ABC World News gave details about the 2021 statewide power failure in Texas.
And as we come on the air tonight, the emergency unfolding across several states. Millions without electricity in Texas and elsewhere across the South. No heat, no water after this first storm, and it's been deadly. At least 15 dead. The family members discovered trying to stay warm in their garage. Several dead after tornadoes as well in North Carolina and in Georgia. One was an EF3, winds 160 miles per hour. And this is all about to get worse. Already the coldest temperatures in more than a century. Now the second storm set to move right across the country, hitting the same states yet again and then right up into the Northeast. Right up through the middle of the country. Tractor trailers pulling off I-75. This is Lima, Ohio, because of blinding snow there. 1.5 feet of new snow near Chicago, and tonight the most dangerous impact across the country, the power outages in at least 13 states tonight. Some 4 million without power, and this image right here sparking anger in Texas tonight. Houston skyscrapers brilliantly lit, while neighborhoods surrounding downtown are in the dark. Families without heat, without power. At least 140 cases of carbon monoxide poisoning in Houston alone. That woman and an 8-year-old girl dying after authorities say they were trying to stay warm using the car in the garage.
Tonight, millions without power for a second day in Texas, and the death toll is rising. In Galveston County, officials are preparing for the worst, asking the state to bring in refrigerated trucks that can hold as many as 50 bodies. The coldest temperatures in parts of the state in more than 100 years is bursting pipes and damaging homes while families shiver inside. This as the extreme conditions are straining the power grid across the region. Rolling blackouts now happening in at least 14 states.
Every source of power that the state of Texas has been compromised. Coal, generated power, access to gas generated power also have been compromised.
An admission by the governor of Texas, the state that ironically calls itself the energy capital of the world. Yet one laid catastrophically low as severe winter storms swept through, toppling the state's power grid and leaving millions of families without heat or safe drinking water. More than 30 have died in extreme cold across America's south, but Texas has been hit by far the hardest. The human cost laid bare. In the city of Sugar Land, a mother and her children were killed in a house fire.
They had started a fire in the fireplace, or whether they were using candles. We just don't know.
Others died inhaling carbon monoxide fumes after running the engine of their car to keep warm. Adding to the misery, frozen pipes forced millions to boil tap water. 500,000 Texans were still without power Thursday morning, the victims of an energy strategy designed to isolate them from the very power failure that's laid them low. Now the big question, was this simply a one-off extreme event or a taste of things to come?
One of the first things a person may think of when caught in a cold winter storm with no electricity is how to stay warm. While there are many possible ways to be sheltered from the cold and warm up, there are some that are dangerous, if not even deadly. Running a generator, a camping stove, or a gas oven or kitchen stove can be extremely dangerous. Even staying warm in your car has some risk. Candles can also be risky, potentially starting the house on fire. So a person needs to be very intentional when attempting to warm up and to do it in a safe manner. KDKA News told about deaths because of using a power generator improperly.
The coroner says that a man may have died of carbon monoxide poisoning because he was using a gas-powered generator inside his home. The power went out at Jeffrey McClay's home in Prosperity, Washington County last night. He was later found unresponsive inside.
An Australian news broadcast explained how a family was poisoned by using an outdoor cooker indoors in an attempt to stay warm during the cold.
A Western Sydney family was poisoned as they slept last night trying to keep warm. They made the nearly deadly mistake of using a charcoal cooker inside the home.
Strapped into stretchers, oxygen masks on. One by one, the Nawasiri family and 2 visitors are loaded into ambulances, all of them poisoned in their Maryland's granny flat.
I was basically sleeping in my room and the carbon monoxide just got to me.
My mom was not feeling really well and my younger brother so dizzy, and especially my mom, she was like really dizzy.
Majid's dad waking with a sharp headache, shouting to his son to call 000 just in time.
They were quite drowsy, they all felt quite nauseous, and I think they were in the relatively early stages of a significant risk.
This charcoal cooker was put inside to heat their home through the night. Toxic fumes slowly filled the Marl Street flat.
These types of heating devices generate a lot of carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide is a very poisonous gas. It will kill you.
And the fact that one of them woke up probably saved everyone's life within that family.
The U.S. Center for Disease Control offers this advice about avoiding carbon monoxide poisoning.
Each year in the United States, approximately 20,000 people go to the emergency room for carbon monoxide poisoning.
Carbon monoxide is a colorless, odorless gas. It's extremely poisonous and it can kill you in minutes if you're exposed to it.
Yearly 500 people die from carbon monoxide poisoning.
Hurricanes or severe storms can trigger power outages that last for days. Some people fire up a generator for power or a gas stove to heat their home, but fail to realize the danger.
It's one thing to be cold, it's another thing to be seriously ill and need critical care.
Never use your oven to heat your home. It could be a source of carbon monoxide for you. It's dangerous. Don't do it.
make sure that their appliances and heating devices are properly vented and maintained by a professional.
Dangers from poorly maintained heating systems are really going to be the number one cause of carbon monoxide poisonings in the United States.
CDC suggests that generators be placed outdoors.
We recommend at least 25 feet away from your house. The best is as far away from your home as possible. So if your power cord is 50 feet, I would put my generator 50 feet away from my house if I was using it.
Carbon monoxide makes people sick, it kills people, and it's completely preventable.
Beyond trying to keep yourself and your family warm, there is an issue of trying to avoid the house water pipes from freezing. Once the cold snap passes and the weather starts to warm up, the frozen pipes will now leak, creating water damage and flooding. This, of course, happens when hundreds of other people have the same problem, resulting in a large increase of calls to a plumber, and consequently a huge backlog and delayed access to help from a plumber. Houston's KHOU 11 News had some suggestions for avoiding broken water pipes due to the cold.
Those of you lucky enough to have water tonight, you need to take steps now to protect those pipes. Grace White is showing what you can do to avoid any more busted pipes. Grace?
This is something you can still do tonight. Go to the side of your house and shut off your water. Then open your faucets, drain all your pipes. It should only take about 5 to 10 minutes, but it could save you from having busted pipes in the morning.
Even master plumber Michael Villasana with Village Plumbing and Air says he's planning to do it.
I'm going to be draining the system down in my house. I'm going to make sure that, the shutoff is off at the city and it's off at my house also.
The best option is to shut off the city's valve at your curb. It's usually in a covered box. Simply turn the handle perpendicular to the pipe. If you can't get to that one, the valve on the side of your house will also work. But before you do that, there's something you should do first.
While they have their water on, and if they do have accessible water, so go ahead and fill up their bathtubs. If they have buckets, have some supply of water to be able to flush the toilet. It's better to be without water for 10 to 12 hours than it is for 10 to 12 days, say a pipe burst and having to wait for the insurance and the adjusters and all that.
You can turn back on your water once the temperatures get above freezing, but open your faucets and do it slowly.
ABC's Kansas City affiliate KMBC9 News answered the question, how much would it cost me to leave my faucet dripping to try to avoid pipes from freezing?
Well, and to keep your pipes from freezing, you should leave the water running just enough so that it trickles, especially if your sink is located on an exterior wall. But have you ever wondered just how much that costs to leave your water running like that all day? Well, the Lee Summit Water Department did the math for you, and they believe by leaving the water trickling like that, you might go through 24 gallons of water in a 24-hour period, or roughly 8 cents a day in exchange for what could cost you hundreds for a broken water pipe. But if your pipes freeze, experts say you should open up a faucet immediately.
After trying to stay warm and taking precautions to save your plumbing from freezing, then there is the issue of deciding what to eat and how to protect the food in your refrigerator and freezer. Then once the power is restored, a person needs to know whether the food in the refrigerator and freezer is safe to eat or whether it needs to be thrown out. KDKA2 News helps us understand how to avoid food poisoning from food in the refrigerator and freezer after the power returns.
And while snow totals grab everyone's attention, a major concern now is also the ice that is expected. That could build up on power lines and knock out electricity. John Shumway is live now with more on this part of the story. John?
Yeah, and the biggest thing that you don't want to do if the power goes out is to lose what's in your refrigerator. So the experts say number one thing, minimize as much as you can opening your refrigerator, because every moment it's open is going to cost you money. You go to the store and stock in supplies and you're ready. Then Mother Nature delivers the cruelest twist, no power, and everything inside the box is in jeopardy. Time is the determiner.
But if it's only going to be a couple of hours, do nothing.
But after 4 hours, it's a different story. And Cindy Javer from Penn State Outreach says when it comes to food that could grow bacteria, no risk is justified.
Getting a foodborne illness is not, anybody that's ever had that, it is not something you want to experience again.
So, what's vulnerable? Well, after that 4-hour mark, she says not the condiments in the door or the fresh fruits or vegetables, but you should
Throw away really perishable things like meats, cheeses, soft cheeses, not hard cheeses necessarily, eggs, milk, anything dairy. Not butter though, butter can stay out for several hours.
And when it comes to meats?
Anything like lunch meats, things like that would need to be thrown out after a few hours.
As for the stuff in the freezer,
The more full that freezer is, it can be out for a day or 2 days, and those foods will not be compromised.
but if things start to thaw and you're seeing liquid in the containers,
If that happens, the best thing would be try to cook it.
so 4 hours after the power goes out, the meat, the poultry, the seafood, the cold cuts, the hot dogs, they're all gone, unless, of course, you stick them outside and try to preserve them.
A county extension agent gave some tips on how to tell what food is safe and what to throw away.
Keeping your family's food safe during a power outage is really important because you can't tell just by the smell if it's good or bad. And one thing that's really, really important to know is if you're in doubt in any way, be sure to throw it out. But how do you tell if your power's been out, if your food's safe? Well, I like the really low-tech method of figuring out whether or not you need to even think about it. So if you come home from work one day and your lights are blinking, or if your power's out due to a storm outage, a really easy way to figure out how long your food's been sitting there in a refrigerator is a really simple method. So let me show you what I do at home. I keep a bag of ice cubes in my freezer. So I just throw some in, 3 or 4, whatever. And if you come home and the power's been out and you still have a bag of ice cubes, you know your power wasn't out very long. Or if they're slightly melted, you're still good. But if you come home and you've got a bag of water, or if you have a big solid cube of ice because your water melted and then refroze, then you know you need to start cleaning out your refrigerator. So pretty much anything that's in your freezer, if there's ice crystals in it, it's safe to refreeze. If you went ahead and froze some cheese and it's thawed out, you can still use it as well, whether or not it's got ice crystals or not. So those are just some everyday tips for things that you can do.
The U.S. Food and Drug Administration has some additional suggestions about food safety.
Whether it's tumultuous thunderstorms, or whipping winds, or mountains of snow, the force of Mother Nature can be tremendous, not to mention crippling to our power sources.
We take our lights for granted, but when the power goes off and the lights go out, knowing what to do with the food in your refrigerator and freezer can help keep you safe. The last thing you need after a weather emergency is a case of food poisoning.
First, make sure you have appliance thermometers in both your refrigerator and freezer. You can buy appliance thermometers in many grocery and hardware stores. The temperature in your refrigerator should be 40 degrees Fahrenheit or below, and the temperature in your freezer should be 0 degrees Fahrenheit or lower.
Also, keep on hand at least a 3-day supply of non-perishable food items that don't require refrigeration or cooking, things like canned goods and boxed milk.
When severe weather is forecast, freeze ice and gel packs or containers of water ahead of time to help keep your food cold in the refrigerator, freezer, or coolers in case you lose power. You can also freeze refrigerated items such as leftovers, milk, and fresh meat and poultry that you may not need immediately. This helps keep them at a safe temperature longer if you lose power. If the power goes out, keep your refrigerator and freezer doors closed as much as possible to maintain the cold temperature. Your refrigerator should keep food cold for about 4 hours if it's not opened. A fully stocked freezer should remain cold for about 48 hours. If the freezer's not full, about 24 hours. When the power returns, check the freezer thermometer. If it's 40 degrees Fahrenheit or below, or if frozen foods still have ice crystals, you can safely refreeze or cook the food.
If the power was off for more than 4 hours, throw out all perishable food in your refrigerator, such as meat, poultry, fish, eggs, milk, and leftovers. Never taste food to determine if it's safe, And don't depend on how the food looks or smells either. Unsafe food can look and smell normal and can make you sick even if you cook it thoroughly. When in doubt, throw it out. Keeping these simple tips in mind will help keep your food safe if you lose power.
Now that you've given thought to what to do and not to do in an attempt to stay warm, and how to keep your water pipes from breaking, plus how to deal with food in your refrigerator and freezer, there are a number of other things you can do when you are in the midst of a power failure in a cold winter. We've gathered some suggestions from news outlets as well as a survival expert. Tampa Bay, Florida's Channel 10 News had some suggestions on how to provide power to your important household items.
During a storm, winds blow down electric lines, and no electricity means no lights, no AC, no refrigerator. The power companies are prepared to get us up and running as soon as possible. But it could take up to 2 weeks or more to get your electricity back on. Here's some ways you can power the stuff in your home, like lights, fans, maybe even the refrigerator. Get a generator. You'll need gas and all the correct power cords that go with it. But make sure you read the directions and test it out before the storm. And here's the most important thing. Don't run the generator in the house or the garage. Keep it a safe distance from your home and away from any open windows. You don't want to let the carbon monoxide in. Those fumes could kill your family. Here's another way to get power. If you can, invest in 1 or 2 of these big batteries. You can charge your phones, run laptops, even power your lights. You can recharge the battery by using one of these solar panels, or you can plug it into your car, but you'll probably want to save the gas. Also, get phone chargers and make sure they're powered up before the storm. Plus, if your internet is down, you may be able to use your phone as a hotspot. But remember, that uses a lot of power.
NBC News Today show offered some tips on things to do before the power failure in the winter.
With the nor'easter from last week, people still out of power. Millions more could lose power today. So you all can use this during this storm or really any storm, no matter where you live in the country. Let's get right to it. Household items, hacks to survive a power outage. For example, outside on many of our driveways and our pathways, we have these, right? Solar powered lights. You'd never think to grab them out of the ground and bring them inside. This is an instant flashlight. There's a rechargeable battery in here. Let them sit out all day today. Take in the sun and charge up, and then look, I'm going to cover up the solar panel. It lights right up. So if it's pitch black in your home tonight, see that? It lights right up. You have an instant flashlight right outside your house. So now let's come on inside the house for some other items that I want to show you about. I'm going to take off my jacket here because we have the heat cranking, which you won't if the power goes out, of course. Okay, water jugs, regular water jugs. See these headlamps, little headlamps? They give off a little bit of light, but watch what happens when you put it on. Look at that. It literally illuminates an entire room because it diffuses the water and the light, and you get to see everything. And you have a few of these, you can light up some different rooms. Let's come into the kitchen, continue on with our tips. Right over here, one of the only water-resistant appliances in your house is your dishwasher. So some of the country is expecting snow today, heavy rains and wind for other parts. If you're expecting a possible flood inside of your house, open the dishwasher up, and the experts say take a plastic bag like this, put any valuables you have, your jewelry, grandma's pearls, your birth certificate, social security cards, important documents, keep them in the dishwasher. And speaking of flooding, this is one of my favorite tips. This little gadget, I'm going to get one of these for my house. It's a flood detector. We got this one for less than $30 on Amazon. You can get them in big box stores too. You can stick it down on the floor. Most people put them in their basements where they're prone to flooding. You stick it right here. This is the sensor. The moment it detects water, right on your smartphone, you're going to get an alert no matter where you are to avoid disaster. Something else you can do? Fill up Ziploc bags with water right now, freeze them up. You have instant ice packs in case the refrigerator goes out. And the final tip, I just want to run right up the stairs. Come on with me. We can turn your washing machine into a makeshift refrigerator. Yes, your washing machine. Come right upstairs. I know you guys are going to like this one. Look at this. If your power goes out, I want you to fill up your washing machine right now with ice. Do you see all this ice in here? Put in your food. The food will stay longer. And the best part is, guys, when it melts, it will drain right into the pipes, just like your washing machine would.
Last of all, let's consider things you can do in advance of a winter storm and the threat of a power failure with all the trouble that brings. It's always better to plan ahead and make precautionary preparations ahead of time. So when the cold and inconvenience of a winter power outage comes, you're ready as you can be. Planning ahead may allow you to weather the storm in comfort and safety. Provo, Utah's KBYU offered some suggestions for preparing for a power outage.
It's easy to start a fire in your home with candles, so keep a supply of flashlights handy. Put a yearly reminder on your family calendar and try them out to make sure they're operating correctly.
Have plenty of batteries on hand to power your flashlights, and don't forget to check them occasionally to make sure they're not too old and they're still within their use-by date.
You're still good, Dad.
There you go. Is that to Haven?
It's best to eat items from your pantry during a power outage. Try to stay out of your refrigerator as much as possible. Most refrigerators will keep food cold up to 4 hours if you keep the doors shut. Same goes for the freezer. Food can stay frozen up to 4 days in a freezer if you keep the doors closed.
When the power comes back on, remember to check the food in your refrigerator and freezer. If you have any concern over spoiled food, throw it out. If you see ice crystals on the food in question, it's generally safe to refreeze it.
You'll want to protect your electronics from power surges that can happen while crews work to restore power. A power strip with surge protector is a good option for protecting electronics. Take 20 minutes to make an inventory of things you and your family may need to make it through a prolonged blackout or power outage.
KHOU 11 News tapped into the survival expertise of a man known as Survival Man, Les Stroud, with his suggestions of how to survive even when it's extremely cold.
We are joined by survival expert Les Stroud, and you may know him from the hit show Survivor Man. Les, thanks for being with us. So a lot of people here are currently without power and water, getting frustrated, they're panicked. They could use a little help just keeping it together. What do you have?
Yeah, and unfortunately, I come with two pieces of sad irony. And the first irony is, of course, that a lot of the people that would need to hear this advice can't right now because they don't have the power, and so perhaps they don't have their screens on. And then the other strange irony is that right now I'm currently producing a special called Surviving Disasters with Les Stroud for American Public Television. So that'll be on for them, unfortunately, a little bit late. This is an all hands on deck kind of situation as well. It does need to be taken seriously. People have succumbed to this, but I'm gonna run down a quick short list for you. That is the all hands on deck emergency moment here. If we're in that situation where you're in your home and it's just that cold and you want to condense your home down. So don't be living in 7 rooms or even 3 rooms. If you can, condense everything down to 1 room. Bring in all of your supplies that way. You want to get in a bit of a sacrificial mind as well. So you might have to sacrifice blankets and mattresses, things that may be ruined in the process. This is about saving your life. So you get those blankets, those mattresses up against the wall, up against the windows. This is becoming a little claustrophobic even as I say it, actually, but it's something to do for survival. Condense your large living space down into 1 small space, but then you've also got sanitation, don't you? So you do have the bathroom to think about. You want to, here's something I've actually done in a bad situation before. Let's throw modesty, not necessarily modesty, but small conveniences aside. When you go to sleep under a ton of blankets. I have one time in -45 slept under a whole whack of blankets with my partner and actually was no heat and stayed warm. So when you go to bed, don't try to sleep normally. Pile up the blankets. One time I even slept in between a mattress and a box spring because the mattress was the only mattress I had. Don't use an open flame inside. That's a big thing. It's so tempting. It's so difficult not to get flames going. Maybe you happen to have a gas stove that's still working, or you want to bring in your camping stove. This is very, very dangerous. You can succumb to the noxious and the toxic fumes and die from this. So it's hard to say don't do that, but because you want to bring the heat in, but that's a very big dangerous thing to do. Staying hydrated is really, really important, which is really difficult in this situation. Consuming sugars. This is not the time to be on a diet. This is not the time to worry about so much what you're eating. You want to stay hydrated and you want to have food sources going into you. And that would include using a lot of people think about it quickly, hopefully, is barbecues. If you got a barbecue outside, you're going to use it outside. That's a way to get water warmed up. That's a way to cook food and use that outside. So keep the food going in. Here's a little trick that I like to say a lot of times. Before you go to bed at night, take a 1-inch square of cheddar cheese, if you have it, and eat that right before bed. Isn't that the goofiest piece of advice? But
Yeah,
the reality is that, I know, but it burns in your stomach all night. I've done that hundreds of times out in the wilderness and in situations like this, and it burns in your stomach and keeps you. I've had times where I've woken up too hot because that food, that fat, that 85% fat burns in your stomach all night and keeps you warm. It's a little trick learned from the Inuit in the Arctic, actually.
The American Red Cross offers some ideas of being prepared for an emergency.
Want to be prepared for an emergency? Here are 3 easy steps to ensure you and your family are ready in the event of a disaster. Step 1. Put together an emergency supply kit with essential food, water, flashlight and radio, first aid and medical items, and copies of important documents. A supply of water and non-perishable food items is essential, so prepare a 3-day supply in case of an evacuation, or a 2-week supply if you are confined to your home during an emergency, including 1 gallon of water per person per day. Be sure to gather flashlights and extra batteries, and some extra cash to include in your emergency kit. Step 2. Talk to your family to develop a disaster preparedness plan. Have a couple of designated meeting places in case your family members get separated. It's wise to have one meeting spot right outside of your home and one outside of your neighborhood in the case of an evacuation. Decide on an emergency contact who lives outside of your area and make sure everyone in your family has their phone number. Develop an evacuation plan and practice it with your family twice a year. Don't forget to include your pets in the plan. Practice following multiple routes to safety or sheltering in place in safe spaces in your home. Once you're safe, remember to contact other family members through email, text, phone, or social media to let them know you're okay. You can also work with your local Red Cross to list yourself as safe and well. Step 3. Be informed. Learn what you need to know to keep your family safe. Know what kinds of disasters and emergencies are likely to occur in your area and monitor the news if a watch or warning is issued. At least one family member should possess knowledge of first aid and CPR.
FEMA, the U.S. Federal Emergency Management Agency, has ideas for a plan for future power disruptions.
If your electrical power should be disrupted, do you have a plan to keep your family as comfortable and safe as possible? Every day we turn on lights, prepare meals, use our computers without really thinking about the electricity that we use. Events like severe storms can cause outages lasting hours or days, and the power could go out for miles around you. During widespread outages, you may have difficulty finding a working ATM machine or getting fuel for your vehicle. Traffic problems may result from signals not working, and no power can mean no air conditioning or heating. The effects of a long power outage can really take its toll, so make sure you're prepared. Include a battery-powered radio in your emergency kit, along with food and water for each member of your family, including pets, to last at least 3 days. You need at least one flashlight, not candles because of a fire hazard, and consider using a headband light so you're able to move around freely. Remember to have activities for children to pass the time, like books and board games and puzzles. And try to keep your cell phones fully charged, so in an emergency you can send text messages. No matter the time of year, we all need to be ready for power outages. Don't be caught in the dark.
As you can see, there are many dangers and risks of not being prepared for a winter power outage. This is especially true if the electrical failure lasts for more than a few hours. People have died making wrong choices when trying to deal with the decisions needed to be made in an attempt to restore power, stay warm, and provide food during these kinds of catastrophic interruptions to the power grid. Today would be a good time to start laying plans in order to be prepared for that future power outage in the cold of winter. To be aware of new videos like this one, be sure to subscribe to the Preparing for the Time of Trouble channel. For more free videos and downloadable audio podcasts, as well as handouts, go to www.preparingforthetimeoftrouble.com. Topic categories include recordings of live seminar presentations, country living, sustainable gardening, homestead remedies, how to be self-sufficient when the grid goes down, wild edible and medicinal plants, hydrotherapy, and end-time Bible prophecies. To take advantage of these free resources, go to preparingforthetimeoftrouble.com.